Hi, everybody. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. So tonight we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be in the library for a short period of time to get some instructions and talk about our new project. And then we're going to go out and do it. So let's get going. So a little background about what we're doing and why. Okay, a lot of what we're doing and why. So some of you might be familiar with our riverfront plan, the South Branch Connectivity Project Framework Plan, and that lines out a future with a connected bike path from Daily Boat Launch, which is on Western Avenue, all the way to Chinatown in Kingtown Park. So that's the goal. But in order to do that, what good is a path if nobody can get to it, right? And we all know that a lot of the streets that go to and from the river are not especially friendly for cyclists or pedestrians. And so we want to take a look at those as we figure out, how to get everybody from A to B. So for the riverfront plan, like this was our study area. And you can see here, this is where the path will go, right there along the river. And the parts that are lime green are the parts that are already there. And so you can see there's quite a few of them, but they're not connected and they're not contiguous. And we would like to change that. And then these are some of the areas around them, some of those streets that would get us to and from, and then also connect neighborhoods, because by doing this, we're going to make it easier, for example, not just to get to downtown, but also to get from our neighborhood to Bridgeport or Chinatown or Pilsen. And so we're hoping to, like, bigger picture, improve the infrastructure for things that are not cars, in order to make a better experience for everybody getting around the city. So these are some of the highlights and some particular parts of the plan. And if you'd like to know more about the plan, you can look back on our Facebook page to see the video where we went over that plan in detail. And we're also available to come talk to other community groups about it. So since we published that plan, now we have to, go do things to make it happen, right? And so one of the things that we're doing is we're working with the National Park Service on wayfinding. So wayfinding is part of what we're talking about tonight, is figuring out how to get people from A to B. And so that can mean signage, but it can also mean just figuring out what is the best way to get there, what is the safest way to get there, what is the most comfortable way to get there, what is the most pleasant experience to get there, and what needs to change in order to make all of those things happen. So that's a big part of the work we're doing this year with the National Park Service. And we are also talking about signs, making it clear where to go, giving information about the things that you might see as recreation and opportunities, and the acknowledgement of our significant history on the riverfront comes to the forefront. We want to make space for all of those things to be acknowledged and celebrated. We also want to work on programming on the riverfront to include all of our language groups in the neighborhood. And also the Park Service is helping us with some mapping. And so tonight you will use their maps, and we're really grateful for that, because that's a lot of behind the scenes detailed stuff. Sorry.
So sorry. It's my birthday.
So, well, happy birthday. So tonight we're going to start a walk on it, and we're going to be doing this every Wednesday for the next several weeks. And so first off, like, what is that, right? All right, so that's what we're going to be doing tonight. And the purpose of the walk audit is to get data that we will use to do these things, to figure out where improvements are needed. So for example, like, we know there's a lot of places we need bike lanes. We know there's a lot of places where sidewalks are narrow, but now we're going to go document them and take pictures so that we can share that data with someone who can actually fix it. So that's one reason. Another reason is, as I just discussed, to determine the future paths to the riverfront that will be like official and marked with signs and say, go this way. And we want all of those to be a good experience. To create wayfinding signage in the neighborhoods as well. So not just to get to the river, but also maybe you're on the river and you're hungry and you want to come to 35th Street and get tacos. And you need to know how to do that. Or you might not know that there are tacos on 35th Street. if you're not from around here, and we want to have that kind of signage to show off all the amenities we have in the neighborhood, whether that's museums or culture, food, festivals, all that kind of stuff. And then also having this kind of data will help us get funding to get these things done. And not just the functional stuff, but hopefully also some fun stuff like programming, new green space, artwork. And so generally all of that together, we want to make biking and walking better across the southwest side. So that's what the data is for. And then how are we going to go get it? So in essence, this is actually pretty simple. We're going to walk one block at a time, both sides, check out the crosswalks, check out where there aren't crosswalks and tell us that. And you're going to use an online form to document what is and is not there. So look for things that work. Like, hey, there's a really nice mural here. And look for things that don't work. Like there really ought to be a crosswalk here. There really ought to be a stop sign here. And make notes about all of that. And we're going to take pictures of those things and you'll be able to upload them. And then we'll aggregate that data to do all the things that we're trying to improve. All right.
Hey, just go back to your point,
Yeah.
assuming you're aware that they're gonna replace the bridge.
On Western?
Now, so have you talked to the people doing the plans, put some bike lanes in there?
So the Western Bridge, we know more about Western. There's not a lot of information about Canal. The Western Bridge, they've actually released images for bike lanes with bollards on Western, which is good. However, there has been no consideration of how to cross Western. And we're having a hard time getting any further with that.
So they're gonna bollard on the bridge portion?
That's what's in the pictures. So,
Okay, yeah, I would just confirm that with the design engineers.
so it came from CDOT.
And then you know how to check the jurisdiction of streets, right? You're getting around the website.
And you're hitting on the other reason this is hard is that a lot of it's IDOT. Yeah,
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that bridge was IDOT or county, or who owns the bridge.
I think Cook County ends up being the intermediary to help people talk to each other, but CDOT is actually doing the work of the bridge.
That's good.
So, yeah, you understand. All right, so I want to give an example of some things you might notice in the walk audit. So this is a picture of Pershing and Wood at the intersection of Pershing and Wood. And so there's some really unusual things here. For example, there are 3 traffic lights in the same direction. So which one are you supposed to look at? And only one of them has a pedestrian signal. And it's not straight across from the corner that you're standing on, which is weird. So you can kind of see why they did it, because you're going into the CMD and the entrance to the CMD is bigger than the block on the other side. But still, like, that's weird, right? So I walked by this many, many times and never realized that there even is a pedestrian signal there. You also notice there's this concrete barrier between like a side road and the main road. That's pretty unusual. That's something you want to note. And then the bike lane is on the outside of it, which is also kind of weird. And then it has you can't see it very well over here, but it actually also has a painted median between the main car lanes. So these are the kind of things we're looking for that, like can be confusing and also can make it really difficult to cross the street. So these are the kind of things we'd like you to take pictures of and make notes about as you walk. Questions here? Yeah.
Just ran,
Yeah.
It's probably guessing,
Okay.
but, is there any like entity in the city, or county, whoever administers, these things that has any kind of history on how this might have been configured,
Yeah, there's maps.
because when, that stretch of Pershing is kind of not just there. And I'm looking at that photo, it's like, it almost seems like some other element was taken out.
You're correct. That element was the US Army.
Oh, well, yeah.
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 But I mean, really, that's why it was built like this, was for.
It almost feels like there might have been previously like other like controls? For, pedestrian safety?
That I don't know.
So I do utility work in the city. The process is you submit what's called an information request or IR. And then there's various agencies within the city that will give you their atlases. So if you flew to this area, you would get like a traffic signal conduit wired layout.
Oh, okay.
And it would show you where all the conduits are supposed to be according to plans.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, we just have so many artifacts. What we were pointing to though is we have all these artifacts in our neighborhood, right? Because we have a lot of things that were built for a particular purpose at the time and everything around them has changed.
Right.
One of the more interesting things on Pershing is that there's so much interest in converting these buildings. We also anticipate in the next couple of years, especially if housing goes in, that we will have the opportunity to say, hey, you really do have to fix this because now we have more pedestrians.
Right.
So it's another reason we want to be armed with data.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah,
So
please.
you want us to walk down 35th Street and look at crosswalks and see how,
We're gonna give you blocks and I'm about to show you the app so you can see all the questions. Okay. Yeah. So fair. So this is the map, oops, that the National Park Service made for us and it's a little bit covered up. Thanks, Delilah. Come on. All right, there you go. Made for us, so this, and you'll notice this map includes McKinley Park, Wilson, Bridgeport, and Chinatown and Armour Square. So these darker lines are the blocks we're gonna walk. That's why we're doing this over 6 weeks. Okay, because it's gonna take a while to do all that. So when we leave tonight, on the way out the door, we're gonna assign everybody probably 2 blocks to go walk and try it out. And then we'll meet up back in front of the library for any debrief questions. But this is what the big picture looks like, what we're trying to capture. We're also interested in if anybody knows other organizations or other like school groups or something that might be interested in doing part of this, we would love to bring some more people on board. In Chinatown, we're lucky, the Chinatown ambassadors are gonna be doing it on the clock, which is really helpful. But for the other neighborhoods, we don't have anything like that.
Is this something we're expected to meet back like every Wednesday?
I mean, everybody can come when they can, it's free form. We're recording the instructions tonight, so we don't have to repeat them every time. And the other ones, we'll just go out, we'll just meet on a corner and then go walk.
Yeah, because I know I'm not free the next 2 weeks.
You're here tonight, thank you. Yeah,
Can people just be assigned asynchronously particular blocks to walk? Like, can
yes.
people just sign up or?
Yes, so the way that's gonna work is that we're loading all the blocks in the app and you can choose to go walk any block you choose. And every couple of days, we're gonna go through them and pull out the ones that have been walked. So that the list will get smaller as time goes on. Unfortunately, we weren't able to automate that. But yeah, so yes, you can absolutely, and actually please, if you are so inclined, take your dog for a walk and document a couple blocks, that would be great. All right, so I want to go over some terminology of things that we're looking for. While we're out, just most of these examples were from Chicago, not all of them. But here are some things just to go over for definitions. So this is the same place on Pershing I showed you. So this is like a concrete median. And then bump outs are where you get to the corner and there's kind of like about a car width where the sidewalk goes longer at the corner.
it's like on Ashland.
Yes. Ashland and Pershing is a really good example, yeah, for the bus stop there. That's a safety feature because it shortens the distance that a pedestrian has to walk across the street and that actually reduces pedestrian accidents.
So people make a turn on right and they don't look up pedestrians crossing, right?
Yep, that too. Yep.
I see the bicyclists get hit from the house and like,
Yeah. All right, this is a pedestrian island. This is in the middle of the street. So some of these went on Ashland last year, for example, and there's a bunch of them soon to go in on Archer in Brighton Park. So again, that's like, well, I made it halfway and now I have to wait for the light. So pedestrian island. And then we're also looking at accessibility for people with limited mobility and other issues. So these tactile ground indicators are especially helpful for people with vision disabilities because you can kind of feel that there's a texture there, so you know that that's the end of where the curve is. And then these sloped cuts, of course, for anybody who uses a mobility device or just doesn't move too quickly to help people ease down into the curve. We're also gonna be looking at types of pedestrian signals. So these are downtown. These are taken on Dearborn Street. So this is kind of your standard walk, don't walk. But one of the things we want to know is, where there's countdowns, and if there is a countdown, can you record how many seconds it is? And yes, we could probably get that from CDOT, but we're already out here doing it. And then on a couple of places in our path, there are these push button signals, and we want to document where those are as well. To the best of my knowledge, there's one on Halsted and two on Ashland. But those are put at places that aren't at an intersection, but maybe usually we exit to an industrial property, for example, to allow pedestrians to cross there. And some of those places where we have those, we might actually like to have regular traffic lights because either they don't work or the cycle is very long and it just makes it hard to cross the street, especially next to the L station. Both of them are next to L stations. And people need to get on the street. Okay, different kinds of bike lanes. So this distinction is important. So, these are your standard painted bike lanes that most of us are familiar with. The city is putting in several different kinds of protected bike lanes. And so these are the bollards, like where Jacob was talking about on what going in on Western, yeah. And then this is also on Dearborn. This has the hard curb, which we also now have on some of Pershing. And a lot of these just went in on Halsted. So we want to take a note of where there's protected bike lanes versus painted bike lanes. And then other forms of street safety. So here's some examples of, a painted median, a grass median, which in Chicago we call a boulevard, but other places they have different words. And other barriers between lanes. So this is Ashland, not Ashland, this is Archer through Bridgeport, where there's like a waist-high concrete barrier between lanes. So even though some of the streets go through, you can't cross. So that's another thing that we want to take a look at. And then there are some positive features. We do have them, or some of them are positive, murals. This is the off-street path behind the Ashland Orange Line at Carlodges. And viaducts, some are better than others. This is a really, really clean one in Bridgeport, next to the IOUE Union Hall. And then riverfront features. At this point in time, we're not going to be documenting riverfront locations, but there is a page in the app for that, and we would at a later date like to start documenting sidewalks and river edge conditions. So for now, you can skip that page, but these are some of the things that you'll see when we get there. So a seawall, which is a hard barrier at the river edge, as opposed to a natural edge where the plants and the dirt gets all the way up to the water. And then escape ladders. One of the things that some of our partner organizations have asked us to look for is to document those escape ladders because we don't have enough of them. And they're kind of haphazard where there's no record of where they all are because they're on private property, and then various industrial entities either put them in or didn't at their leisure. And as we have more people in kayaks and canoes on the water, there's more danger that somebody could fall out and need one of those ladders. Because it's pretty difficult to pull yourself up on 6 feet of seawall. And I want to point out too, this list of features, there's a link in the form that you're going to see. So if you're like, I don't remember where that thing is, you can click and watch all of these pictures again. Yeah.
Thanks for the very clear visual presentation. Just to be clear, the audience for all of this data will be the Killeen Park Development Council in order to help choose and encourage other city agencies to identify and prioritize the best routes to the future lakefront path.
That's one purpose. Yeah, we will probably end up sharing this with city and state transportation agencies, also the planning department. Definitely both wards, because to get things done, we need a little muscle. And of course our state legislatures, because we need money. So like it's a kind of a broader ask. The National Park Service is going to help us make maps out of all this data in order to do those things. And then we will also share with other organizations that are trying to do the same thing we're trying to do, which is, get people outside. So organizations like Active Transportation Alliance, Active Transportation, Friends of the Chicago River, the Park District are all potential people that we would share with. So obviously none of this is like anybody's personal information. But yeah, it does have the potential to have a really broad reach.
And you pointed out a lot of like positive features. We want to capture that because that could help make decisions about like where to prioritize. We like to build on top of the infrastructure that's already there, but we also want to capture like problem areas because other entities may use this data to address this.
Right. So that's a really good point. We do want to capture what's working as well as what's not working. And so some of the questions in the forum are like, I feel safe walking here. And we would kind of correlate that to what the features on the street are, right? And say, hey, well, people felt safe when there were bump outs. We need more bump outs, so we're looking for that kind of thing too. All right, so here's the form. So at this point, let's get all of you in the form. So I can pass around some paper QR codes if it's hard to take it off the screen, but you can use the QR code in the language of your choice. Switch this around so that you guys can kind of follow along. Okay, anybody want to take one or can I get on the screen? All right, yeah, feel free to like circulate those. Also, all of this is on our brand new website at chicago.org, as well as all of the resources that we're showing you. So if at any point you're like, how do we do that again? It's all on our website in the news section. Give everybody a minute to get in there. And then we'll kind of walk through it. Anybody need more time? Okay. So you guys have used online forms before. I don't feel like I have to go through everything, but just want to point out, there's a lot of what I just covered here is like, why are we doing this? Is right here on the front page. So you just click start. And then also, if you are comfortable, consider enabling your phone's photo location data. It'll pinpoint with GPS exactly where that photo was taken. And that way, when we share with these other agencies, if the photo ever gets separated from the comments, then they still know where that photo is. And, it's usually often obvious why that photo was taken. So that will help the agencies that we work with figure out exactly where they need to go to do what they need to do. So we have instructions here for iPhone and Android. All right, this is the meat and potatoes. So the instructions, this is step-by-step instructions. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna walk one block at a time, walk both sides of the block, including, it says crosswalks, but also crossings, even if there isn't a crosswalk. If you really feel unsafe, go back to the nearest crosswalk and, don't feel like you have to run across our turbo trucks coming. But we would like to capture both sides of the street on every block. That help link here, these should be the picture examples that we just went over about what all those definitions are. And then this is the other thing that's really important. The names of the cross streets are not necessarily the same on both sides of the street in some areas. For example, on 31st Street, it is drastically different through Bridgeport. It is drastically different on both sides of the street. So we had to pick one because we didn't want somebody to walk the same space twice, okay? So we picked one, and therefore if you are on the other side of the street, just stop where the cross street is over there, okay? So if you're going from like on 35th Street, 31st would be if you're going from like Piggy Court to Locke, that's a block that only happens on one side of the street. So when you get to Locke, that's the end of your spot, turn around, walk the other side of the block and you're good. Make sense? Maybe? Okay. Do your best to estimate where that street sign is. You can stop at the street sign with the name and whether it's on the same side of the street as you are or not. The only required field in the whole thing is the block. And that's because sometimes some of these things exist in studies in general. So you'll need to, there's a drop-down menu, And then there's about 230 some blocks listed in there. We're still working on getting the rest of them. But just pick the one that applies to you. It is searchable. That doesn't mean you have to scroll for 230 days. Okay, so if you start typing Archer, everything with Archer will pop up. And you can find your one. This is a geolocation to mark where you're starting. And then the times basic. One of the things we'll also kind of look at is like, well, you know, if for example, there's some questions about disability, which you might answer differently at 7 PM than you did at 10 AM. And so that's one of the reasons we're asking for that. All right, and then you just scroll through and answer the questions. And so here's some of the things we just talked about, right? So medians, pedestrian islands, bump out, their check boxes. The only quirk is that on mobile, this is yes, no, and unsure is over here. So you might have to like scroll over a little bit if you need that. Otherwise, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And then instructions where we, for questions where we need a little bit more help, you might see this. If you answer a certain way, be sure to take a picture of this thing, so you'll see little notes like that throughout the questions. And then when you get to the bottom, here's the place to leave your comments, and here's a place to upload a picture. And so when you tap on this, it'll pull up your photos, and you just pick the right ones and hit add. On iPhone, I don't know about Android, sometimes I had to kind of pull the photo menu down. It loaded them, but my phone didn't, the photo app didn't realize that I loaded them, but this app did. So it was all good. So if you see that, just like scroll your app down and it'll go there. And then one of the other things we ask is your general assessment of walkability. So by the time you got done walking this block, what did you think? It was pretty good. It was not good. It was somewhere in the middle. And then comments for that. And when you do that, think about both the infrastructure and the quality of your experience. So the quality of your experience took you under a viaduct and you are getting dripped on and it's gross and you can't see where you're going. That is a poor experience. Do not be shy. It's okay. On the other hand, if you took a walk by a beautiful park and you really enjoyed being out there, that's a great experience, right? So we want to get the whole spectrum. So like I said, right now, we are not doing riverfront locations, but this is in there for the future. And now we're almost ready to go. All right. So here's the map of McKinley Park. So tonight, we've chosen blocks that are within about 4 blocks of the library, because it's getting dark and we know people, have things to do this evening. So thank you for spending your time with us. So on the way out, we're going to give everybody 2 consecutive blocks to go walk. And then we will be, someone from MPDC will be hanging out here at the library in case you have questions, you want to debrief. So this is the library. And we'll hand you those on the way out the door, okay? These are all the blocks, big picture that we want to walk in McKinley Park. So also, if you get so excited by this that you just want to keep going, go ahead, please. Please. We're gonna have like at least 350 blocks to walk. So like, go walk. Everybody should get exercise before it starts snowing. These are our next couple of walks. We will put this in a more formal format to get out, but we are going to keep walking every Wednesday at 6. We'll start a little bit earlier for subsequents. Today we were on the library schedule. And we will not have this whole intro again. So if you know anybody else who would like to join us, tonight's introduction will be on our Facebook page, and it is linked on our website. So anybody who wants to do this, who can come tonight, can just watch the video, and then they can go out and walk too. Yes.
Is there like a waiver required that you guys even sign, or did you guys determine that's not needed for this?
I mean, I hope everybody walked here. Yeah, honestly, we hadn't really thought of that. You're good. So yes, these are some locations that we'll be meeting up for future walks over the next couple of weeks until the end of October or until the night. All right, so here's what we're gonna do next. If you want to walk with a buddy, choose a buddy. So those of you who have kids, there's your buddy. Those of you who don't have kids, feel free to take one. We're gonna give you your block assignments. Like I said, on the way out the door, we'll just tell you, so if you need to write it down. And fill the form. You're gonna fill out a separate form for each block. So you're gonna get all the way to the end and click submit and then start over. And when we're back, like I said, you're welcome, come back here to debrief. We'll probably be out in front of the library by then because the staff really wants us out of here by 7:45 and I don't blame them. And then, yeah, if anything, if you have questions, you can ask somebody in an MPDC shirt. And if anything, there's some reason you can't do the block you were assigned, like, I don't know, there's a sinkhole or construction or police tape or whatever, like, it's cool. Just make a note about why you couldn't do it and then move on. Any other questions?
Want a picture of every block, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, there'd be relevant pictures of every block, yeah. Yeah,
350 total, yeah.
I honestly haven't, I don't have the final, but it's gonna be somewhere in that ballpark. It's a lot. Yeah,
Figured it out.
all right. So Karina, right there, is gonna be at the back door and she will give each of you 2 consecutive blocks to walk. And for everybody who's watching online, thank you very much, and I hope you'll join us for future walks.